Clyde, this does not rock. I think that sums up my attitude coming out of the finale of Survivor 46. Welcome to Survivor Analytics. That's my whole open, is this does not rock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm the voice of the people. My name's Jack. With me, as always, the true expert. Say hi, Clyde.
What's up, party people? I disagree with Jack on this. I think this finale does rock. Probably because I predicted the winner correctly. The third time on this show that I've done that. For the first time, I got the final tribal council combination incorrect. I had Liz, Charlie, Kenzie. So I underestimated Ben. I should have known since he was on my fantasy team. But Jack, between the two of us, you're definitely the one that's more fired up with the ending of this season. And I want to give you the stage at the beginning to just express how you feel, because I know you had an espresso martini before the recording. We're recording this at almost 10 o'clock your time.
We're 24 hours out from the end of the episode, right? We're 23 hours and 10 minutes. And I am so disappointed with this finale because it's put a bad taste in my mouth after a really exceptional season. This is one of my favorite seasons we've covered. I really enjoyed this season. I enjoyed the cast and the combination of questionable moves, delusional reads of other people and of people themselves, and the vote itself at the end, and the details that have come out since, right? The post-game interviews that have come out and the revelations therein have soured me on this season. And that's really a shame because I think there's a lot of great cast members. I am not, to be clear, I'm not upset that Kenzie won, but I am upset by the manner in which she won. That's how I'd put it.
That's fair. This is not a Samoa situation where you were furious with the Natalie White win.
No, it's you know, had it been a Liz or Ben win, then I might be in that camp. But I mean, Kenzie was in our list of contenders, right? Last week. You predicted her. But the way that this episode went about just harshed my vibe. And I'm very unhappy with a few different people on this cast. People I thought highly of disappointed me. And people I did not think highly of managed to sink even lower.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I would die for Charlie. I think he is one of the most sportsmanlike and well-spoken second place people we've ever seen. And we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about between Charlie and Kenzie. And just kind of giving my overall thoughts on the finale, I think, and this might be kind of psychotic, I think Survivor is a little bit more entertaining when I disagree with the outcome in the end. Last season, going into the finale, we both agreed D was the front runner. D entered that episode, dominated those last two rounds, and won the season. So it was a satisfying ending, but it wasn't a shocking one. I'm at the point now where I kind of enjoy it when you have these unconventional winners like a Kenzie, like a Natalie from Samoa, even though I personally disagree with it.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Like some of my favorite seasons, I have my ranking of all 46. Some of the ones at the top are ones where I vehemently disagree with the final winner at the end, but I think it just shows what a complex game Survivor is. And at the end of the day, the goal is to just impress the jury, right? And that's something that Kenzie did here. I don't think it's a particularly impressive strategic game. I'll be giving my ranking at the end of this in terms of where I have Kenzie ranked as a winner out of the 46. But spoiler, I don't think she's in the top half.
No, I wouldn't put her in the top half. I think if she had sat next to some other people and had a little more agency and who made it to the end, I could see her going higher, but I would not put her in the top half of winners.
And on the flip side of that, I'm pretty high on Charlie. I think he might be one of the best non-winners, potentially the best non-winning game that we've covered on this podcast. I think the other contenders there would be Amanda in China and Russell in Samoa. Maybe you could put Austin there too, but I think he's kind of in a tier below those three.
I mean, I think it's a very close race with a couple of those, but I do like that the seasons we've covered, and I guess this sort of goes back to your point about sometimes an unsatisfying or unexpected winner in the end is enjoyable. It is great to see solid options for solid contenders in second place, right? The Russells, the Amandas, the Austins, and the Charlies now, although Charlie, I think, is in a little bit of a league of his own. I think he does stand out. That's a sign of a good season when you don't have a runaway winner.
Let's hop right into it. We got a lot to cover here. So I think we can speed through a lot of the events of this episode surrounding the final five, at least, because that's a more predictable round of the show. So
yeah,
everybody comes back to camp. Final six vote just went down. Q just eliminated from the game. Maria now needs to rebuild her relationship with Charlie as she just voted against him in the previous tribal council. And I wanted to get your thoughts on Maria's approach in this early section of the episode, because she does two things. She tells Charlie that she was tricked into voting against him.
Yeah.
And then step two is paint a target on Ben, because apparently he's this master strategist that earlier in the season voted against Kenzie intentionally rather than by accident, which he claimed. So,
yeah.
What did you think about Maria's approach here? What would have been the optimal route after being left out last week?
See, I'll be curious what your take is on the optimal route, because I don't know if there is one, right? If radical honesty is the best option. I mean, what Maria doesn't seem to know at this point, is that Charlie actually does have solid relationships with all the other people left on the beach. So the lies she's attempting to make aren't going to land. She doesn't know that he has those relationships, though. It's much easier to lie about where you fell on a vote when there's 10 people. When there's 6, when there's 5, that's not going to work. She needs Charlie in her corner because everybody else is gunning for her clearly, right? And I think maybe radical honesty would have done it because of how close they were at this stage. I'm going to start saying were, because we now know they're not close anymore. This friendship died on the island.
Oh, there will not be a hangout anytime soon between Maria's kids and Uncle Charlie. Yeah, Uncle Charlie is not getting invited to Thanksgiving anytime soon.
I don't know. What do you think the optimal path was? Because I respected her trying to move, right? Trying to recover. But I don't know how she could have done it better. What do you think she could have done?
I think I agree with you in that there was not much Maria could do at this stage to rebound from that vote. Honestly, I think her only move at this point would be to say, this is a negative on my resume. I attempted to vote you out and I wasn't able to do it. It would be impressive if you went to the end with me because you overcame, my shots at you. In reflecting on this section of the episode, Maria genuinely believes that Charlie forgives her. Charlie says in confessional that he knows he still needs to vote out Maria, but I wonder if it would have been better from Charlie's perspective if they go back to camp and he's just honest with her and he says, "You're my next target. Let's move forward from here." Because by giving Maria that hope, that might have impacted her feelings when she later goes to the jury.
I mean, it's a tricky spot when this friendship and they were both talking about targeting one another, right? This alliance had to fail because they both played such good games. And the question of, will my closest ally be an advocate for me on the jury? I don't see that crossing Charlie's mind. Because I think in Charlie's mind, if he ends up on the jury, he's going to push for Maria because he's recognizing, hey, a Maria win is in some way a Charlie win and vice versa because so much of the tactics were shared.
I guess that's a major quality to look for in establishing your original alliances on Survivor. There you go. There's a Survivor analytics tip. Align with people that will advocate for you on the jury because we see two allies take drastically different approaches. We see Tiffany campaign so hard for Kenzie later in this episode, whereas Maria doesn't even vote for Charlie in the end. So it's definitely something that's important in establishing those early bonds. But I'm good to head to the first immunity challenge if you are.
Yeah, mud and a puzzle.
Man, the challenge descriptions have really declined over time, I've noticed.
I'll have a much better one for the second challenge because I loved it.
Okay,
But
same.
here's the key thing to talk about at this challenge. It's immunity and a reward. The reward being a what I would call a church fundraiser Italian dinner. That's how I'm going to describe it. Generic pasta, Caesar salad, garlic bread. You would get this at a fundraiser. If you took the sausage out, it could be a Friday during Lent kind of meal. We get into the challenge. Charlie and Maria are both cooking, and then Kenzie makes up some distance. At a certain point, by the time we get to the puzzle, we never see Charlie or Ben again in this challenge. The camera doesn't even show them anymore. Jeff doesn't check in on them. I think they just were having a good time. I hope they were, because the rest of us weren't. It's a puzzle, and then the puzzle, you have to solve a combination lock. It's one of those with the hit a gong, whatever. I'm so jaded about this specific challenge because Maria is close, Kenzie is close, and Liz decides that it is better for her game to help Kenzie win than for Maria to win. And Liz decides to go back and get a piece of the puzzle that is necessary for the combination lock to help Kenzie, so that Kenzie doesn't have to do the running back through the obstacle course that was designed as part of the challenge. Jeff seems to have no problem with this individual immunity challenge turning into, hey, let's beat Maria.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
It sucks.
I'll scream this from the rooftops. This should not be allowed under any circumstance, especially at the Final Five, which is one of the most important immunity challenges of the entire season. We have a historical precedent of Survivor players attempting to help each other in these late game individual challenges, and Jeff tells them no. There's a famous example from season 23 Survivor South Pacific, and the player that attempted to get help there went on Twitter, not on Threads, to complain about it after this finale because she wanted help in the challenge and Jeff didn't let it go down.
See, this is the stuff I don't know. This is true expert stuff right here.
This is ridiculous to me because it begs the question, to what degree are players allowed to interfere with each other in the individual challenges? Hypothetically, could Maria go up against Ben, Charlie, Kenzie, and Liz all working together around the same puzzle?
And where is the border, right? Is it, I'm allowed to help you figure out the numbers here? Or could Maria go take a puzzle piece off of Kenzie's puzzle and just chuck it into the freaking ocean? Crossing the line, right? If you think of this like, I think of, and they kind of set it up this way, every individual challenge, especially the obstacle course ones, have lanes, like swim lanes.
Yeah.
And if you start crossing between them, where does it stop? As soon as that started to happen and Jeff just let it go, I was furious. And the fact that it was both allowed by production and that it occurred to Liz to do it.
Oh, I don't mind it on Liz's end because Liz knows that Maria is the biggest threat in the game. You got to do whatever you got to do to knock her out. I think this is entirely Jeff and production's fault for not stepping in.
I mean, she shouldn't have been allowed to do it, but I think less of her for trying to do it as well, because it throws into question, what is Liz's strategy here? Is Liz trying to get to the end with Kenzie and then say, I helped Kenzie win this challenge? I don't like that a player did this, and obviously she shouldn't have been allowed to do it, but the player had to start it, right?
Yeah.
And I dislike that. But so Kenzie ends up winning contentiously, and it's tense.
Well, it should be. And I give Maria, I know we're probably going to have some comments on Maria later in the episode.
Yeah.
But I give her credit here for not blowing up after that entire incident with Liz. Because if that were me, I would be furious with production for allowing that to go down.
100%. Oh, I mean, at this stage in the episode, I was still a big Maria fan. I came into this episode a big Maria fan.
And I'll say this, I never thought that I would be on here defending Survivor challenges. I am the poster child of Survivor challenge hate. This is my least favorite part of the episode. And like, for me, the bar is so low. I don't expect these things to be entertaining. I just want everyone to compete in their own lane, and Jeff can't even accomplish that.
And Maria handles it as well as she could.
Kenzie selects Ben for the Survivor Sanctuary reward. I thought at first she would select Liz because, Liz cheated to help Kenzie win. But of course, it's revealed that Liz is allergic to pasta. And I wrote down that I think Liz might be the worst player I've ever seen, like, built genetically for Survivor, where she's allergic to the food rewards. She's allergic to the coconuts. Her wrist.
She's got wrist problems that apparently are going to keep her from building fire.
I would not be surprised if she has asthma or something like that and she gets gas during all of the challenges. A lot of things go against Liz in the genetics department for this show.
I think I texted in our Survivor chat something along the lines of, it's ironic that Liz is on Survivor when natural selection should have weeded her out.
Oh, man.
Like she's got a lot going on. But so I want to frame this Kenzie choice to take Ben. I actually really liked how she did this, because I know there's something to the whole players established beforehand. Hey, I'm going to take you if I win. I'm going to take you if I win. I'm sorry, I can't take you, right? Kenzie doesn't frame it as, Ben, you're my friend, yada, yada. She says, look, Ben hasn't had a reward. He hasn't gone to Sanctuary. I'm going to take Ben. By taking Ben, she keeps the Siga 3 separate, leaves Maria and Charlie together, but keeps them away from Ben, Ben being their only hope of flipping. But Kenzie isn't framing it in a tactical way. She's framing it in her own way, which is empathetic and generous, and let's make sure everybody gets a chance to go to Sanctuary, right?
Yeah.
I really admired that from Kenzie. And we do find out the biggest takeaway I had from Sanctuary is that Ben doesn't have a driver's license.
I wrote that down too. I'm surprised by that.
Odd.
I got the vibe that Ben was the driver for his band. Like, they're all in one of those classic, like, minivans. You got the drum set in the back, and he's the one at the front with one arm out the window, singing along to all the karaoke songs as they drive to, like, Las Vegas for their next show.
It's the, and maybe this is a reference that dates us to a certain age group. It's the loaded diaper van, right? From Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You know, it's the classic cheap band van. Yeah, I had that mentality as well. I feel like we've talked about it before, because I've had that mental image of Ben in the real world in a van before. But do you have anything else before Tribal? Because that's literally all I have.
I think I'm about good to go to Tribal.
We tease an idol hunt.
Yeah, tease an idol hunt. It made me wonder if Kenzie made the right choice in selecting Ben. Like, it would have been an awkward meal, but if you take Maria on reward, you're taking time away from her potentially finding the idol.
Yeah, you're guaranteeing she's limited time for idol, limited time to pitch others on her survival.
But this Tribal Council, I think, was the least entertaining aspect of the entire finale, where the result felt so obvious walking in. Maria gets a final speech. This is the third Banu send-off. We have Banu giving a speech in the pre-merge, Venus dedicating her time on Survivor to, who is it?
The women of Iran.
Yeah, the women of Iran, and now Maria gets a final speech as well.
Yeah. Well, I think Venus dedicated her game to the women of Iran in the, like, in her credits confessional thing.
Oh,
I don't think
you're
that
right.
was at Tribal.
Yeah, Maria's was technically still in the game.
Did you have any moment during this Tribal where you thought there was a chance that Maria had the idol?
Not one.
Okay.
Maria's edit this entire season has been leading up to her being a Final 5 boot. She had, in total, I think, half the number of confessionals of Charlie and half the number of Kenzie. So she was positioned as this big threat going into the finale, but with no real story to back her up. So it felt logical that she would go home at Final 5.
Do you have an epitaph for Maria?
Oh, no epitaphs for the finale. My epitaphs are done. I got enough to prepare this week with all of the finale content. I'll also say, in this Tribal Council, Jeff claims that people look at Survivor now as a, quote, young person's game. And I want Jeff to know that we don't see Survivor as a young person's game. It's production that does. They're the ones that don't cast anybody that's, like, older than 40 years old. I looked back at this cast.
Yeah.
How many people would you guess are over the age of 40 out of 18?
On this cast, Maria.
Yeah.
Tim?
No, not Tim.
Tim's in his 30s.
Tim is 30 on the dot.
Randon.
Yeah, Randon 40 on the dot, so barely
Tim's
qualifies.
a dad, though, right?
Yeah. Tim and Maria had the parent connection.
I guess I just kind of assumed that all parents were in their 40s.
Is that it? The third one is Banu, who's also 40 on the dot.
Banu's 40?
Yeah.
So, that's not good. You can't act like he acted at 40.
What? Yes, you can. And he did.
That's
He
so
did it great.
immature.
But going back to the original point, this would not be perceived as a younger person's game if casting did their job and had a wider range of ages.
Yeah, I think that's well, there's somebody who's like 59 on the 47 cast.
Oh, what? You already know the ages of the 40 several cast?
She talked about it in the preview.
Oh, yeah. At that point of the episode, we were at the reunion. I was watching it on like 1.75 speed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of Survivor as a young person's game. I think of it as when you have a season like this, right, with the vibe tribe of all young people boogieing around the island, right? Yeah, it's going to seem like a young person's game. But if you had a couple people on each tribe who are in their 40s or 50s, all of a sudden, yeah, I agree. It's a casting thing, not a fan perception thing.
Yeah. So your final vote here is a 4-1, 4 on Maria, 1 on Ben. When Maria gets voted out, everyone hugs her and she receives a standing ovation. And I thought this was the most obvious example of 4 players attempting to earn Maria's jury vote as she walks out the door.
Well, here's the hard part, right? If one person starts a standing ovation, you have to stand and clap.
Yeah.
You can't not. It's impossible to be seated during a standing ovation and feel like you are in the right. I'll just put it that way. In any context.
That's fair. And I also have a take on this Maria elimination and how it relates to Charlie. And I think I hinted at this last week, but I think Maria going out at 5 is the worst possible thing for Charlie's game. Where at this point in the season, she is far and away perceived as the biggest threat. So by voting her out, it's not seen as a stamp on Charlie's resume. It's seen as the obvious move. Whereas he had the numbers at Final 6 and Final 7 to knock out Maria. If he votes her out in either one of those rounds, then it's seen as, oh, Charlie's coming into his own and knocking out his number 1 ally. Alternatively, if Maria survives one more round and Charlie beats her in fire making at Final 4, then it's a powerful moment. So I feel like a unanimous vote against Maria at Final 5 did little to boost Charlie's resume.
It's an 11th hour move. It should have happened a while ago, and it just couldn't because of immunity wins, right? So, yeah, I think that's fair. But I think that's also a hindsight thing because who would have thought that Maria could win as many challenges as she did, right? She went on a tear.
Yeah, she won 3 challenges on this season. She was 1 away from tying the woman record for most individual immunity wins.
All right. Well, welcome to the second hour of Survivor 46's finale, which I like to call the Twilight Zone of Delusion. Because we basically, as soon as we get back from commercial after this tribal, everybody's trying to make fire. And Liz is very worried that she's going to be sent to fire because she's the biggest threat left on the island. That's her narrative that has materialized like a thunderstorm over Fiji. Liz is the biggest threat. And other people seem to share that mentality.
Yeah, everybody except one person, and that's Charlie. Charlie's the one person that knows that Liz would probably not win the game if she made it to the end.
Yeah.
It seems like Ben and Kenzie perceive Liz as this massive threat due to her NAMI connections on the jury, but I don't think many of those NAMI players would feel super inclined to vote for Liz in that scenario. Like, do you think that Liz gets more than 1 jury vote if she reaches the end?
I don't think Liz gets 1 jury vote.
Oh, you don't think she even gets 1?
No.
Who? Maybe Q?
No. No. No, I don't think Liz gets a single vote, and then she screams at everybody. I think production is thinking they're lucky stars she went to fire because if she had been a no-vote finalist, she would have made it everybody's problem for the whole after show.
I would have loved that, though. I think this finale would have been way more entertaining if Liz entered the final 3 fully expecting to receive a unanimous jury vote, and then she doesn't get a single one.
I mean, there's a dark part of me that would appreciate that. Delusional narrative that Liz is a threat seems to pervade, right? And it's being set up early before the challenge. Liz is a threat. She's expecting to go to fire. But she's struggling because, as we alluded to earlier, she has, I I didn't write it down because I took very few notes this episode. She has ligaments that are too big for her hands. What? You're a doctor. That's not a real thing.
It might be a real thing. I don't know. I don't specialize in hands. They did crack when she shook them around. So that's all the evidence I need to make a medical diagnosis, I guess.
But she makes some fires. Like, we'll say this. She is capable of making fire. She completely talks herself out of it, basically. Says that she's physically incapable of it and then does it plenty. Which I think is production's way of saying, yeah, we're not going to let you get away with your excuses. Do you have anything before the challenge?
Other thing I'll highlight, going along with this theme of the Twilight Zone of Survivor, we get a scene of Ben and Charlie highlighting their friendship where they describe themselves as the Dumb and Dumber Alliance. Did you know that was their name this entire season?
So when I read Charlie's interview, post-game interview with Entertainment Weekly or whatever, he had themed alliances with several people that never made the edit.
Oh, okay.
He had a Harry Potter themed alliance with Tiffany. He talks about he and Ben had a very close relationship and I believe still do.
Yeah, we don't see any of that in the post-merge. We see it a bit in the pre-merge when Charlie saves him in the first Sega Tribal Council. But other than that, like, I was under the assumption that Ben was closer to Kenzie than he was to Charlie.
Yeah. And here's what I think that is, because there's also stuff in the post-game interviews about how Charlie was there for Ben just as much as Kenzie in his panic attacks. I think production decided, look, we know Ben is a no-vote finalist. We know Ben has one great accomplishment in the end, which is winning the challenge we're about to talk about. We're going to set up his arc and Kenzie's arc as well as we can by showing her compassion and his hardship. If we show Charlie's compassion, it'll get confusing. No, we need Kenzie to look really nice, and we need Ben's story arc to be what he went through, which is panic attacks, insomnia, night terrors, all leading into a challenge win, right? And so I think it was a really calculated edit that does Charlie a disservice in a season where there's enough disservice done to him, right? And does Ben a disservice because there's strong social play that is never emphasized.
Oh, I 100% agree. I really like what you said about using Ben as a way to prop up Kenzie's social game, because she eventually wins in the end due to those social connections. And without those scenes with Ben, all we would have would be her poor treatment of Jess and Banu in the pre-merge. Apparently, the two of them have said after the show that they were not particularly happy with the way that the other Yanu contestants treated them.
Jess was in a tough spot. I mean, she was really struggling. So I feel for her. I don't feel for Banu.
I know you don't, but I'm good to go to final immunity if you are.
All right. So continuing the delusion, Liz decides to call herself Mima and walk in with a walking stick and making Charlie help her walk into this challenge.
Yeah, what was this bit? This was not connected to anything else shown in the edit.
Absolutely more Liz delusion. She can't, I refuse to accept humor from her. Let me describe this challenge. Is there a name for this? Do you know? I believe it's new.
This is a new challenge.
So I'm going to call it Stressful Plinko. That's what I'm going to call it. Do you know what Plinko is?
I know of Plinko. It sounds familiar.
So it's in The Price is Right, and it's like you drop a thing into a board with things, and it bounces down, basically like the ball does in this challenge.
I just looked it up, and the name of the challenge is Plinko Puzzle. So you were very close.
Plinko Puzzle, I'm going to call it the Stressful Plinko Puzzle, because basically it's a puzzle that you can only do while essentially a skee ball is going through a Plinko board. If the ball gets to the bottom of the Plinko board and touches the railing, you have to let it roll all the way down the railing, which is designed to last, it looked like a full minute, right? Is really, really slow. It's fantastic. It's like all of the great thinking for challenges over the last 6 episodes or whatever went into this, right? We haven't had a good challenge like this in a while, and I really loved it. Frankly, it's the bright spot of the finale for me in a lot of ways. Like, I really enjoyed this challenge.
See, I'll say that this is the best challenge of the season, and it proves that challenges can still be fun and equitable in the new era.
Yes.
If production,
Yes.
just takes the time to go to the drawing board during the offseason instead of saying, oh, let's run the crucifixion challenge for the 8th season in a row, or let's do some motion as the final immunity challenge for the 5th time. Stuff like this proves that you can still make great challenges in Survivor, and it should set the bar for the next season.
The hard part is that sometimes you get a cool one like this, and I'm like, I'd like to watch this again.
Oh, yeah, I would have no issue with this one coming back, but I think there should be like a 4-season gap.
It would be really great if the obstacle course untie some knots puzzle formula was limited, right? If they said, okay, we can only do one of these every 3 episodes. It's a good challenge. Kenzie at one point throws her skee ball into the sand. Liz struggles mightily to get the ball up the ramp because of her ligaments. And Charlie has a couple of different times where he barely falls behind the buzzer and has to wait for his ball to roll all the way down. All of those factors, Kenzie throwing her ball in the sand and the other 2 struggling, enable Ben to pick up his first individual win. First and last, he wins the last challenge of the season and wins handily, right? It's close at the end, but not that close.
And I was hype. I was like, give me those fantasy points, Ben. I got to milk every last point while I still can, because I knew he wasn't getting any jury votes in the final tribal.
Ben has a really heartwarming arc on this season, and the fact that he got to end with a little bit of triumph is really nice. I mean, he doesn't end with triumph, obviously, right? But he had this great bright spot, and he's such an affable guy that it's impossible not to root for him.
But now he has a big decision.
So yes, this is the question. Who are the optimal choices to take with you and send to fire? Because it's very clear, right, for a Charlie or a Kenzie, you want to be sitting next to Liz and Ben at the end. But for Ben, it's a little trickier because he doesn't have as clear of a path, right? You really have to set yourself up poorly, and there might not be a winning combination left. All that to say, if you were Ben right now at this stage in the episode, who would you have sent to fire?
Oh, he has to put himself in fire, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think Ben's at the stage now where he's drawing dead against Kenzie or Charlie if either of them reach the end. And it seems like in his final tribal council speech, he's aware that he doesn't have the same winning stock as the 2 of them. I think when Jeff gives each player the opportunity to provide their closing remarks, he straight up says that, oh, I know I'm not on the same level as Kenzie and Charlie. So maybe he didn't have that realization until the jury started speaking. But if I'm in Ben's shoes and I haven't really directed a vote on the season, the one real accomplishment on my resume is this final immunity challenge win, which is very similar to, who is it that also won the final immunity in a spot where it didn't really matter anymore? Heidi in 44 was kind of drawing dead going into the finale. She wins the final immunity, but she was self-aware enough to say, for me to potentially earn some jury votes and win the season, I got to take this risk. Like, you don't want to play for 3rd place at the end of the day. You got to play for first. So if I'm Ben, I probably go into fire. If I'm honest, I would probably go against Charlie just because I would perceive him as the best player on the beach. I think Ben's tactic is very different. I think he knows he's drawing dead and he just wants one of his friends to win in the end, which is a really kind thing. It's not the best characteristic in a Survivor player.
So let's dig into that for a second. You think his choice was positive? It was, I want Charlie and Kenzie next to me at the end, hopefully, or at least one of them next to me at the end. I took it as, and maybe this was the edit fooling me, maybe I was a little bamboozled. I took it as, Liz is a giant threat. We have to send her to fire. And then who am I going to put up against Liz? Who can beat Liz?
That's probably a factor of it too. But I think Ben is a more emotional player.
He's absolutely the emotional player because he weeps and sobs through his entire series of conversations about who's going to fire, right? He cries so much. And I get that he's running on very little sleep, and this is obviously a high-stakes decision.
Charlie and Kenzie have different approaches here as well, where Kenzie asked Ben to send her into fire because she wants that stamp on her resume beating Liz, whereas Charlie wants a clear path to the final tribal council. So how did you feel about each of their approaches there? Do you think it would have been better for both of them to ask to go into fire?
I think it's such a tricky question because you're having to weigh, if I'm Charlie or Kenzie, I'm having to weigh the strength of my current resume with the opportunity to stand out a little more. I think if I'm Charlie, I want to go to fire. And I think if I'm Kenzie, I want to sit next to Ben. I want Ben to just pick me.
Okay.
Because Kenzie's a social player. The storyline that we are shown of Kenzie's arc over the last 6 weeks is that she has helped Ben through all of this. Ben bringing her with him to the end and saying, I want to sit next to you because you helped me through all of this. And yes, as we know after the fact, Charlie was right there with the two of them. I think it would have been there's a clear narrative there for Kenzie. Charlie wanting to build on a more strategic and performance, right, and challenge success resume. I think it would have looked better for him to say, put me in fire, to win it and go, hey, I won a couple challenges. I trained my hand strength for 2 years, right? And I had a good strategic game. I think he's got the outwit, outplay, and Kenzie has the, what was the other one that Ben added? Outshred?
Yeah.
Kenzie is outshredded, right? She's shredded with friendship, where where Charlie has done the other things. So that's my take, is Kenzie should have tried to sit, and Charlie should have gone to fire.
I can really understand it from either perspective. Like, for Charlie, he has, like you mentioned, he's excelled strategically and physically, but maybe by having Ben take him to the end, he can go in front of the jury and say, I'm a triple threat because I'm a social player. And when your social play is the most important at the end of the season, I beat Kenzie and convinced Ben to take me to the end over her.
Yeah.
So that's one route. The other side of it with Charlie is that his big concern going into the final tribal is the same one that I've been saying for the past couple episodes, which is him being perceived as Maria's sidekick.
Right.
So to kind of overcome that perception, he needs flashy moves. And, sometimes juries like it when you go up there, make the fire, there's fireworks. Maria goes, wow, you have fire in your eyes. And then she votes for you to win at the end. So maybe for Charlie, it would have been a good move to enter fire.
Oh, in hindsight, it 100% would have.
And then you could say the same thing about Kenzie with getting the social move or the flashy move. So, and with Charlie getting taken to the end, he later says that this was a part of his strategy because he always wants to keep his doors open. And I wrote this down because it's a fun play on words, but Charlie always wants to keep his doors open, but at some point in the game, you need to close a door loudly. You need to announce to the rest of the house that you're making a move. And I think that's one of the reasons why Charlie ends up losing. He has all those doors open, but no one really notices.
The one door he closes, Maria, he closes too late.
Let's go to fire making.
All right.
Liz tells Jeff that Ben perceives her as the biggest threat in the game. Liz hypes herself up a lot in this tribal council.
So much.
Before the challenge, during the challenge, and after it. I think she tells the rest of the group after she loses that I would have beaten all of you.
So, yeah, we get, at one point she says, I'm the biggest threat. And I think that's when we get a shot of the jury and Venus goes like, the fuck?
Yeah, Venus is giving the side eye. I think Hunter is shaking his head in disapproval.
It is a radical level of delusion. Then we go into fire. I mean, let's put it simple. Liz chokes.
Well, they both choke. Apparently, it was a long fire-making session. I watched Charlie's exit interview today, and he said that it took a while for the two of them to make fire. He thought Jeff was going to give them matches, which is what they did the first time fire-making was ever introduced in Season 10.
It took that long?
Yeah, it took that long because the players were just not ready for it. It also makes you question, too, why Maria later says that the fire-making challenge is what won her over, especially if both players take like 20 minutes to make the fire.
So, I mean, and we'll get back to this, but in Charlie's postseason interview, apparently every time he's talked to Maria about her choice, she's given a different reason for why she picked Kenzie. She's never been able to stick to a reason. So it takes a long time. And at one point, Charlie says something, vaguely encouraging to Liz. And she essentially says, "Shut the fuck up, Charlie."
Yeah.
And it's bleeped. Absolutely a horrible move. Hey, welcome to Survivor Analytics. Here's our big tip. Don't swear at somebody trying to help you when you've already had one emotional outburst on the season.
Well, I think she swears at Charlie because Charlie gives some kind of advice to Kenzie on how to set up her sticks. Honestly, if I was Charlie and I wanted Liz to win the fire making, I would just stand up and start helping her make the fire because Liz did that in the previous challenge. You're welcome to just help anyone you want in any challenge now on Survivor. Can the jury step forward? Can Tiffany come down and help Kenzie since she wants Kenzie to win so bad?
Yeah, can you just go over to Jeff and borrow his knife, which is probably better and has a lighter built into it? Okay, so this is another factor to just discuss a little bit. To practice, they were only given knife and flint. They were not given all of the pieces, the bits and pieces. And Jeff says, "This is the first time we've done this," or "It's been a while since we've only given you the knife." They're definitely not going to just give them the knife going forward.
Oh, I think they should only give them the knife going forward because
You do?
before this season, we were breaking the fire-making record almost every season.
But this one took 20 minutes or whatever. It took so long that Charlie's like, "Where are the matches?"
Yeah, I know we're on a 26-day format, but I think we can spare the 20 minutes in the fire-making challenge.
That's fair.
It
That's
builds
very
suspense,
fair.
and it also gives production more footage to work with. I like the moment where Kenzie, I think, stops making fire entirely, just recollect herself and center herself before going on to defeat Liz.
Let's be honest. There is a world, there is a narrative that may or may not be true where this fire is the reason Kenzie wins. Supposedly, right? And she wins convincingly. She builds a great fire. Good job, Kenzie. And we have our final three.
I'll say that I think jurors claiming that they voted for one contestant over another due to fire making is an excuse 99% of the time.
Yeah.
I think it's just a very tangible thing that people can point to because they don't want to admit the actual reason why they voted for somebody. I will also say that if I was ever on a Survivor jury, I don't think I would really value winning fire making that much. And you tell me if this is crazy. I think sometimes it can actually be more impressive to be taken to the end than to win fire making. I think it's impressive to get taken to the end because it proves that your social connections, the foundation of Survivor, were strong enough. And I don't know if Charlie really got that credit here.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely some value to that. And I think a fire-making win can be consequential if you're a Ben, if you're a Heidi, right? If you're trying to make this your big move and you're saying, "I'm going to bet on myself right now." But if you're sent to fire and you win fire, it's just what you have to do. It's not something you chose to do. And so I think that lack of agency is what makes it an underwhelming move and makes it a not compelling reason.
Yeah. And I'll also admit that my opinion is definitely influenced by Survivor knowledge because forced fire making did not enter the show until season 35. So pre-season 35, they would just have a normal vote at Final Four. So I think there's always a part of me that thinks you won fire, but if this gimmick wasn't in the game, you would have been voted out. What is your Liz epitaph?
Well, so everybody goes back to sit down. She goes, "I would have beaten you all." And it's really awkward. She's convinced that she had a winning game. Rather delusional. When her torch is snuffed, my mom pointed out, shout out to my mom, that Jeff snuffs her torch, doesn't look her in the eye, and turns away before she can go for a hug. Because Liz has dishonored the game in this episode between her challenge interference and her pretty unsportsmanlike. Oh, another thing to throw out. After fire making, Kenzie, sweet mermaid dragon that she is, goes to hug Liz and say good game. And Liz rolls her eyes.
Yeah, and she says, I wrote it down, "Come on, you knew you were winning that," diminishing Kenzie's accomplishment in that moment.
Yeah. And way back when she started talking about her ligaments, she's been making excuses all the way through, right? It's always somebody else's fault, which leads into my epitaph. If Liz had been on 100 podcasts instead of 200, maybe she'd be able to listen to those around her a little bit better. So, R.I.P. Liz.
That's a good one. Welcome to the epitaph world.
Thanks. Will we see Liz again?
No. I'll be releasing my full returning player analysis in the next week, but I think there's only 2 people on this cast that are locks to return.
The final thing to note with Liz is that her entire narrative on this season of I'm a millionaire, I'm here to prove to my daughter that you can do these things, but I don't need the money, that's entirely fabricated. She is not a millionaire. Apparently, she thought her winning game was going to be getting to the final tribal council and going, surprise everybody, I'm not a millionaire. I do need the money. Gimme.
You don't think that would work?
No.
I think that could earn Q's vote based on the way that he votes in this final tribal council.
An absolutely preposterous strategy, and she was convinced. She goes out saying, I could have beaten you all, based on lying about her net worth. Yeah, goodbye. Good riddance.
Yeah. Not a great overall game from Liz. I will say I think she was a fun presence to have on this cast between her outbursts and her general delusion. Like, I said this previously on the podcast, but it's good to have people on the show that are not great at the game of Survivor. And I think Liz checked that box perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say this because the members of the Survivor finalists, right, are all wonderful contestants and people that I really enjoy. There are people on this season that are so bad that I will never speak ill of Carolyn again.
What? I never thought I would see the day.
My frame of reference for a annoying or bad Survivor player has been so thoroughly reset by 46 between Banu and Liz. I mean, like in hindsight, I've completely warmed on Carolyn, and I regret being as harsh on her as I was.
Wow.
Because she was annoying, but she was just living her best life, and she was actually pretty shrewd. And she was aware that she was a little kooky, and she owned it. The people on this season who are kooky don't recognize how kooky they are.
There's a lot of character development here on your end, Jack.
Yeah.
We have less emphasis on the challenges now than we did when we first started the podcast. We have a new opinion on Carolyn. I will say, when Carolyn was on the show, we talked way more about the challenges because we had all the squawks to discuss. Like, she did add some great elements to the overall product.
I'm so excited to get to Cook Islands, and I am assuming there are good challenges because it's an old season.
Oh, for sure.
I'm so excited for that. So don't think I've completely reformed. But so where do you want to go from here? Is there anything left to talk about before the final tribal?
I'll say that before the final tribal, there's this segment of all of the jurors talking about what they want each of the finalists to talk about in their speeches. And there's this shot. It looks like, I don't know, like a 90s boy band where all the jurors are posing in the middle of the forest.
The fashion shot. Yeah.
I noticed that Liz was not there. So I'm assuming they did the whole photo shoot before Liz was voted out of the game, or maybe she was busy like having an allergic reaction during that entire segment.
No, I think Liz was there and they asked her to step to the side.
No.
Because Liz is edited out of the entire final tribal as completely as possible. I do not think she asks a question.
Let's hop into the final tribal. I'm sure we each have some highlights that we want to hit on. My first highlight from this segment of the episode is the opening, where typically in a final tribal, you have a contestant that gives some kind of speech that sets the tone, and you typically want an unbiased party. But that is not the case in Survivor 46, where Tiffany is the person that provides the opening remarks, and she says, "We are not looking for Taylor Swift lyrics. We are not looking for pop culture references. We are looking for serious, thought-provoking responses." And I wrote down, Tiffany basically says in the first 20 seconds that she's voting for Kenzie, right? Because she takes a shot at Charlie with the Taylor Swift side, and she takes a shot at Ben with the pop culture side. Like, I thought Tiffany was a fun presence on the jury, but I don't know if she was the best person to open up the night.
I think some of the other things that she does in this tribal, the timekeeping, right? The beefing with Q on the jury, she brings some sparks, but the instant presence of bias, very quickly in this tribal, two narratives emerge or are set up. Ben is the good vibes rock and roller who made it to the end on vibes. Charlie was Maria's henchman. So where Kenzie is set up to just show that she made it there and prove her resume, to show off her resume, she has to prove herself. Charlie and Ben have to disprove perceptions and prove themselves.
And it's interesting too, and you tell me what you think about this, but Ben is perceived as the vibe guy of these three, meaning he had a good social game, but he didn't really have any strategic moves on his resume. What is the strategic move of this season that we can solely credit to Kenzie? How is Kenzie's game drastically different from Ben's? They're both social players, and Kenzie's definitely taken more seriously as a social player, but I don't know if the two of them are that different from a strategic perspective.
The only thing, the big strategic move that I wanted from Kenzie was the Tiffany blindside that she bailed on.
Yeah.
And so without that, I don't see the difference, except that Ben leaned further into a character and Kenzie was just nice, right? Kenzie was just there and present and kind, and in a way, and obviously there was a lot more to this example than what I'm bringing up. Kenzie played a Jam Jam-esque game in that where Jam Jam strategically had a ton of agency and made a ton of moves, right? And had a killer pitch. He was always kind to everybody. And he was himself and he was nice, but he wasn't over the top as a character like Carolyn. In a similar way, sort of, Kenzie was always nice to everybody as much as she could be towards the end, where Ben was like, oh, what's up, dude? Vibes, rock and roll, bro. And Kenzie just said, hi, how are you? Right? That's the difference, is character versus not.
It's weird for me because when I think of the best social players in Survivor history, I think being a great social player has multiple facets to it. One of them is having people like you enough to the point where they would vote for you on the jury. But I also think a great social player is someone that is able to navigate and join different groups and have agency in different groups because they are so well liked. And I think that's something that Jam Jam did very well, where Tika entered the merge of that season, playing the middle between the Raw 2 and the Soka members. And part of the reason they were able to do that was because both of those sides like Jam Jam.
Yeah.
Kenzie seems to be well liked, but I don't know if there are many instances of her social game actually translating to strategic agency. That's one of my thoughts there. But what are some other highlights you have from this final tribal?
Geez, man. The what will you do with the money question.
Okay. I wanted to talk about this as well.
And I guess there's two parts to this. One is their actual responses, and then the other is this question worth being asked? And should it play a role in the decision, right? So to start, Ben has a phenomenal answer. I loved Ben's answer. He talks about he's a son of immigrants. He wants to set up his parents to retire. He wants to grow up a little bit and stabilize his own life. He wants to start working with an organization that he specifically names what they do, bringing music education to South Florida, right?
Which is the most Ben charity I've ever heard of.
Very Ben, but a worthy cause, right? Specific, he's thought it out, he knows what he would do, and it's a good answer. Kenzie, hey, I've been working since I was 15, and I don't make as much money as I should because I'm a really nice person. So I would like to have the money because I've worked really hard for a long time. I don't fully understand the economics of her salon, but if she's not charging for the chairs in her salon, I don't know. Is she paying all of the bills for the building off of her own chair? I didn't fully understand that one. But she's worked really hard. She's a tough cookie, right? That's all great, but it's not as impactful, specific as Ben's, so much as it is, I've grinded for a long time and this would help me out, which is fair. Charlie is a little squishy. He says there's all kinds of organizations he'd like to donate to. He'd love to help his parents out, and he'd love to put himself through law school because he's passionate about immigration law, clinic work in immigration law, which is great. The juxtaposition of Ben's, here's a specific organization I will give to and fund and work with, and Charlie's, there's all these great causes, dollars for all of them, right?
Well, and Kenzie's, I'm going to keep it to myself.
And Kenzie's, I've been grinding all my life. In my opinion, Ben won this.
I think so too.
If you're going off of who deserves the money, Ben should win. That leads into, should this play a factor in the decision? Because Ben should not win this season of Survivor. It is not who deserves the money the most.
So I'll say that I respect that Q is a juror and he can make his decision however he desires. He can, roll a die and say, if it's 1 or 2, I'll vote Ben, 3 or 4, Charlie, 5 or 6, Kenzie, right? He can do whatever he wants as a juror. However, I think this is ridiculous. If you're going to vote based on circumstances outside the island, what is the point of playing the game to begin with? And there's a difference between saying, I have this incredible connection with you, and because of that connection, I want to support whatever endeavors that you will pursue with this money after the show. There's a difference between that and saying, let's clear the board of everything that's happened up until this point and instead vote solely based on who needs the money.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it was Kenzie's social game that earned the vote as opposed to her response to that one question. And if it was the response to that one question, I'll be really disappointed with Q.
Yeah. I mean, totally fair. I think if this was a who deserves the money most game, it could be a PowerPoint party where everyone gets to talk about how little they come from and how much they want to do with the money. And then they just go, oh, well, you had the worst presentation because you wanted to throw a Nerf party for 1,000 people. You're out.
This has been a constant discussion throughout all of Survivor history. You probably remember in China, the players voted out Denise at Final Four because they were worried that she was the lunch lady that would get a lot of sympathy in a final tribal council. So it's a part of the game that you can't escape. Like, it's a human element. This is a lot of money that you are giving someone, like a life-changing amount of funds.
Yeah.
But I hope it doesn't serve as the sole decision maker in your vote. And I worry that might be the case with Q because it seems like he is so pro-Charlie the entire final tribal, and he ends up voting for Kenzie. And he says in the reunion that her response to that question is a driving factor. So last major highlight for me in this final tribal is the Maria-Charlie dynamic. And I think there is one question in particular where we get a hint of Maria not respecting Charlie as much as we thought she would, where Charlie gives a response where he essentially says that his connection with Q is what enabled him to enter that cross-tribal 6-person alliance that ultimately amounted to nothing, right?
Right.
And when he says that, Maria steps in and says, actually, you joined that alliance because I gave you the letter of recommendation. Maria wants to make it clear that she is responsible for Charlie's success in the game. Like, she wants to uplift her game, and in doing so, she needs to downplay Charlie's. And I think that's a very, narrow way of looking at Survivor, where two allies can work together and both be successful in the game. But I get the sense that Maria doesn't really see it that way.
It is a strange moment, right? The Meat Boy majority comes up. Hunter and Tiffany have a very funny little, oh, you did not want to be a part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like a really positive little moment from some of the jury. Hunter, I think, is one of the clearest heads on this jury. I'll say that. His question is good. His commentary is good. His confessionals are all really solid. I like where his judgment is at, right? This choice by Maria to downplay somebody who's still in the game, to lift herself up after the fact. There's no way in which that's going to come out good for her. All it can do is bring Charlie down. If Charlie and Q hadn't had this bond, your letter of recommendation wouldn't have meant anything.
Yeah.
Right? If Q didn't think you could be trusted, it didn't matter.
Yeah, because he was the head of that whole alliance. But
yeah, he was the mob boss of, you can cancel Christmas or whatever he liked saying, right?
Even when Maria makes this comment, I thought she's still going to vote for Charlie in the end. earlier in the season, we had a comparison of Charlie and Maria to Malcolm and Denise from season 25 Survivor Philippines. And I can tell you on that season, Denise makes it to the end, Malcolm's on the jury, and he criticizes Denise. He kind of rips her apart to a degree. But in the end, he still votes for her to win. He takes that moment to let out his anger, express how he feels, because he probably would have defeated her in a final tribal, but he still recognizes her game and awards her the win. Maria's different, though, where she ridicules Charlie's game and then flips against him.
Let me ask you a question here. Is there something to a former ally sitting on the jury, pushing you to defend yourself, to give you an opportunity to talk yourself up more?
Oh, 100%.
That's not what this is, though, because it's not a follow-up. Oh, can you speak more on how you got into that alliance? Because I was a part of it, too. It's, I let you in, not you. It's a period, not a ellipses.
I think the Maria-Charlie dynamic will be one of the biggest takeaways from this season. I feel like every season has one of those big moments that people reflect on, and I think this will be the season where, Maria flipped on Charlie at the very end.
See, well, let me ask you, just as we're starting to get towards the end here, what would you say that moment is for 44? Because I think it's Jam Jam helping Carson with fire.
I think it's Jam Jam helping Carson in fire too, because it shows two things about Jam Jam. It shows he's a great social player, he knows how to connect with people, but he's not the best strategic player because he can't identify that Carson would beat him in the end.
Yeah.
I think it's a good summary package for the season, which is interesting that the biggest takeaway from 46 might not even involve the winner. Anything else from Final Tribal before I go to the final vote?
I really don't think I think Liz must have asked a question because everybody asks a question and they edited her out.
She probably asked a question. We probably just missed it. You don't think so?
I threaded about it and got a whole bunch of people saying, no, she didn't ask a question.
Really?
So,
it's interesting too, because I feel like on different juries, players hold different amounts of agency, right? And in general, I think the later you get voted out in the game, the more potential sway you can have once you go to Ponderosa, because you've just been around the finalists more. And I get the sense that Liz did not have that much agency in this jury.
I read her post game absolutely as confident, we'll say, as you might expect, in her own win equity. She characterized the rest of the people in Ponderosa as a clique who wouldn't let her in.
And she still thinks she would win?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll say for this jury specifically, Liz did not have the most agency. I would argue that Tiffany might have had the most sway over people in this group. Granted, that's given the result at the end.
Well, I want to build on that for a second, because I think there's a few people on this jury. I think Tevin, Soda, their blindsides were so complete and they had so few allies left that they're not there for sway. They're there for, let's see what happens, right? Tiffany, she goes out. Her closest ally was not a part of the blindside. Why wouldn't she work to sway the vote in her ally's favor, right? So I think you're absolutely right on that. And I think it's a combination of, there's big personalities, right? Hunter is not going to be a big swaying presence on the jury because he's a quiet guy. But I think Tiffany's the only one who really wanted to sell the jury on one specific person.
And Charlie said in his exit interview that he learned that Tiffany was campaigning for Kenzie the entire time on Ponderosa. And in that same interview, Charlie says, man, I wish my number one did the same thing. Which would have probably helped him. But your final jury vote is 5 votes for Kenzie, 3 for Charlie, 0 for Ben. Your 5 Kenzie votes come from Tiffany, Q, Tevin, Venus, and of course, Maria. Your 3 votes for Charlie come from Liz, Hunter, and Soda. It has been revealed post-show that if this was a tie, Ben would have voted for Charlie to win. So I think when you look at Charlie as a non-winner of Survivor, that is something that you definitely need to account for, because it means that he was essentially 1 vote away from winning the season.
And so he was essentially his closest ally staying loyal away from winning the season.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this finale so heartbreaking and so kind of bitter. If Charlie had been in Maria's seat and Maria had been in Charlie's seat, Charlie would be advocating for Maria and he would have voted for her, right?
I think so.
Her shift and the fact that since all the stuff that's been coming out in interviews today, since the vote, since all the time since, she has been inconsistent, unapologetic, just unclear on why she did what she did. It really is a shame that a player with a really solid game. I mean, I love the hub spoke strategy, right? I liked it when Carson did it. I like it when Charlie does it. The don't close a door strategy. I like that. It obviously got him to the end, and it got him as close as possible. Like, obviously, there's a lot Charlie could have done to win, right? Is there anything glaringly obvious that he missed?
So this kind of connects well to my thoughts on Charlie and his legacy as a runner-up of Survivor, where at some point I want to make a ranking of every Survivor finalist. It would take a long time to do, but I think it would be an interesting exercise because there's like 80 of them out there, because you'll have 2 or 3, like 2 finalists every season, 46 seasons, right? Actually, I feel confident in saying this. I think Charlie has a top 10 finalist game in Survivor history. Maybe top 5. I would need to go back and like check the numbers. But in just looking at the people that we've covered on this podcast, I think his run is more impressive than Russell's on Samoa. Yeah, even though Russell held more control, Russell was so poor socially, so I think Charlie was a more well-rounded player.
Yeah.
I don't know if his run is better than Amanda's on China. I think Amanda might have held more agency. The only issue with Amanda is that she falls apart in the final tribal council. But to answer your question, why does Charlie lose the season? And I think this might go back to the premiere of Survivor 46, where all of them roll up on the boats. And Jeff says in that first challenge that some of you cannot win this game because you just won't connect with the players on this cast as well as other people. Charlie says in his exit interview that based on his discussions with the members of the jury, the majority of them all believe that he had the superior strategic game, which is what we care about here. We're Survivor Analytics for a reason, right? We value the strategic game, at least I do, over everything else.
Oh, I value the physical game over everything else. If you win challenges. But yeah, strategy above all, right? You can be the nicest person on the beach, and I care more about the votes you make.
But this was a jury that, at the end of the day, didn't care about the direction of votes as much. They cared more about how you made them feel and the bonds that you formed on the island.
Which is so hard. We know he formed bonds, right? Tiffany and he apparently had this alliance, right? That never got any screen time, but did exist. The social game Charlie played was good. Kenzie's was great. And apparently good social and great strategic doesn't outweigh great social, right?
Yeah.
A good and a great do not equal a great, and that's frustrating.
It is frustrating. And I don't know, that's one thing that I'll struggle with at the end of this season is who's a better player? Like, who would I have more confidence in winning any random season of Survivor, Charlie or Kenzie? And I think I lean towards Charlie because he just has a broader range of skills as compared to Kenzie. And it's great that she's this phenomenal social player. You can make the argument that she's one of the 5 best social players of the new era. I would say Jam Jam's better, but she's definitely in that conversation. But I think Charlie is just a contestant that would always have multiple ways of navigating his way to the end. So I'm very high on Charlie. I would love to see him come back in a future season. But if I'm being honest, I don't know if we'll see Charlie come back for a second appearance. I just think there's so many people in that, nerdy white guy archetype that CBS will be looking at. And you can't cast a Charlie, a Drew, a Carson all on the same season. You kind of got to pick one.
His path to a return relies on the contentiousness of his loss.
Yeah.
Right? He had a game that really stood out, and a big shame of all of this is that in 6 months, when we're done with Cook Islands and we're getting into 47, we're deep in 47 in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Looking back, what I'm going to remember is Maria's betrayal of Charlie, not Charlie's game. I'm going to remember he was a great player, and I'm going to remember him with a ton of respect. But the moment, the tipping point that sticks is the betrayal. And that's not something that lends itself to a returning player storyline.
So we talked about Charlie as a non-winner. Do you have a legacy of Kenzie as a winner? We talked so much about Charlie this episode. We need to give Kenzie her flowers.
Well, I think the hard part is I want to give Kenzie her flowers, and I feel bad for Kenzie. Not that bad, because she won $1 million and she's married and about to have a kid now, right? She's doing great.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kenzie. I will throw out, why did she sell merch?
Kids are expensive, dude. She's having that newborn. She wants the $1 million and some extra funds to go along with it.
I guess the $12 extra you'll make off your merch really add up. 2 old diapers. Here's my challenge with giving Kenzie flowers. So many factors led to her win that were not her. If Liz hadn't decided to break the rules of Survivor, the unwritten rules of Survivor, and help her win the challenge at Final 5, Kenzie might not be here. If Ben had made a different choice at Fire, Kenzie might not be here.
The biggest one, if Randon is not medically evacuated in episode 3. When Randon gets medically evacuated, Yanu was going to tribal council, and the discussion around camp was, will we vote out Kenzie or will we vote out Banu and try to drag Banu along as this goat to beat in the end? Like, there is legitimately a world where if Randon's back doesn't have a nerve get pinched, Kenzie is a pre-merge elimination, which for me, at least, as someone that, you know, ranks winners and stuff, that's a major knock against her.
And that's a knock against her. But I think the hard part for me is, like, yes, there are some knocks against her, but there's also just all these other extenuating factors, right?
And the Q approach as a juror. I'm assuming those are 2 factors that Kenzie did not expect going into the final tribal. I bet she thought she was losing the Maria vote, and I bet that she was hesitant with the Q vote, considering they had not worked together for very long.
I mean, and they literally beef in tribal at one point. Like, there's a discussion of a conversation that Kenzie, Tiffany, and Q had where Q goes, I wasn't there. It feels like this was a 400-meter dash where the guy who was running in first got hit by a bird. And she was in second, and she ran across the line, you know, first, right? She was going fast. She was running the race just like Charlie was, but Charlie got hit in the face by a bird. So it's this weird combination where I want to give her flowers, but there's so much other stuff that I'm having a hard time seeing through all of the extenuating circumstances to get to that point.
So with that said, where does Kenzie rank in your 5 Survivor winners? So I have your previous 4 here if you want to hear them.
Yes, please.
So as of our last time discussing winners back at 45, you had number 1 all time, Todd from China. Number 2, D from 45. Number 3, Jam Jam from 44. And at number 4, as per usual, the champion of Survivor Samoa, Natalie White.
Oh, Kenzie's going 4th and Natalie's dropping to 5.
Okay. So I'll put that in, and I'll have you know that my ranking is exactly the same as it stands with those 5 right now.
I think that's really easy. Todd's all-time great, friend of the show. Shout out to Todd. I hope he's doing well. I have a Funko Pop on my desk now, and I think of him when I look at it a little bit.
I might order one at some point.
You should.
I think it'll be a good splurge now that there's some funds coming in.
But, I mean, of those 5, right? Todd's one of the best of all time. D had a great win. Jam Jam had a great win. And then these other 2 are forgettable. They are. Natalie is memorable for anger, and Kenzie, in the long run of this show, will be one I forget. After a season I enjoyed.
Okay, so that kind of transitions well to the next question. Where do you rank 46 all time? So I have your 4 rankings for those seasons as well. So you previously had China at number 1, Samoa at 2, 45 at 3, and 44 at 4.
I'm going to put 46 at 3rd. I think China and Samoa are both better seasons, but 46 is the best new era season we've watched.
So I agree it's the best new era season. I will say your list is funny now because the top 2 are old school seasons in China and Samoa, and then you have the 3 new era ones at the bottom. But I kind of get it because they all follow a similar structure and format. Like, even a great new era season is similar to a mediocre and bad New Era season.
Yeah, and I think that as time goes on and we start to watch some more original era. What's the old era?
There's names for different eras of Survivor. So the one that we're watching next, people call it like the experimentation era for Cook Islands, because they're just like throwing random ideas and shit at the board and trying to see what sticks.
Cook Islands is certainly an experiment.
Yep. Yeah, you know.
I think that as time goes on, the new era will start to bubble higher up some of these. I'm pretty high on this season. Where would you say, what is your ranking of the seasons? If we have our winners in the same order, what is your ranking of the actual seasons?
So my ranking of the seasons, let me see. At number 1, though, without a doubt for me, is China, which I have 13th all time.
Yeah.
Then at number 2, I have 46, which I'm putting at 15th all time. It barely breaks my new era rule, which was all new era seasons cannot be in the top 15. This is the best season of the new era, in my opinion, and it squeaks out in 15th place. From there, I have Samoa in 3rd place, 21 all time, then 44 in 4th place, and then 45 in last.
Yeah,
so
I think that's fair.
It's similar but different. We both agree China's at the top.
Can we just do that again?
This will be a real test over the summer with Cook Islands, because Survivor China is widely regarded as a top 10 season, whereas Cook Islands has people that absolutely love it and then people that are not fans at all.
Great.
So I'll be interested to hear your opinion on that. And to all of our listeners, thank you for following us for all of Survivor 46.
If you found Survivor Analytics this season and you stuck along for the ride, we're grateful to have you. Follow us on social, let us know, leave reviews if they're complimentary. If not, don't bother. But it's really crazy. We've done 5 seasons now. That's wild.
5 down, 41 to go. To give you some insight in what we have planned next, we'll have the finale going up this Sunday. The following Sunday, I'll be uploading my player rankings where I walk through each contestant's game. Based on what we've talked about in this episode, it should not be a surprise that I'm probably going to have Charlie at number 1 overall for the cast. Probably Charlie at 1, Kenzie at 2. But if you want to know who ranks 3 through 18, that's an opportunity for you to listen in. After the player ranking, we'll then be jumping over to Survivor Cook Islands Season 13, which we will be covering over the summer until the premiere of Survivor 40 Several in September.
And I tell you what, I'm fine with the Jelinski influence on this at this point. Because here's the thing, I wasn't high on Jelinski. He was a quitter. But you know what? A quitter isn't a bad thing after some of the delusion on 46. So 40 Several, I look forward to it. The fun thing is that nobody will call it 40 Several in any of the promotional stuff or any of the episodes because they won't have seen 46, right?
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah. Thanks again for listening, and catch us over the summer as we travel to Cook Islands.